permission, Right Honorable. Part with a word of caution to the high and the mighty. Those who would desecrate the Constitution of this Republic, those who would corrupt the institutions of the state, those who would the protocol that was established. Right Honorable Speaker, Chief Justice, I regret not having brought the artificial wig with me, but that's because I'm plenteously provided for up here. No need. Two, I had people drop names of OBs and so on and so forth. Permit me to drop one or two. You heard of Edward Sekandi, Chief Justice Gicheru in Kenya, Chief Justice Ramadan in Tanzania, Chief Justice Odoki in Uganda, Deputy Chief Justice I think all of them. My Lord, the principal judge, you stand accused of exaggeration and you are convicted as charged. You said too many things about me, but one thing you said that needs correction is practicing certificate or diploma, LDC. No. In my time, the time of Chief Justice Odoki, you went from the lecture room to the courtroom. No LDC. We graduated in May. A week later we were interviewed. And the next day we were working in the court. What you meant was international diploma in restorative justice from Queen's University in Canada. I want to say a very few things about what has been happening today, this morning. I've called it the courage of conviction. Courage of conviction. Once in every troubled age, a man or woman stands up and speaks up for the courage of his or her conviction. The price of such courage can be high. Once in a while, the price is one's own dear life. For Uganda, such a spectacular age was the age of the early 1970s to the late 1970s, the decade of 1970s. 3 distinguished men of honor and dignity and chivalry stood up, spoke up loud and clear and ended up losing their lives at the hands of a brutal butcher of Uganda. One was the doyen of the then only University of Uganda, Vice Chancellor Frank Kalimzo, to whom our keynote speaker adverted to very ably. Another was the prince of the church, Archbishop Janan Luwum. And the third was the high priest of the shrine of justice, Chief Justice Benedicto Kagimu Chiwanuka. Deep in their heart of hearts, embedded in the depth of their conscience, the trio felt the searing pain of the brutal dictatorship that was let loose on the hapless population of their motherland, Uganda. They didn't, they couldn't take it lying low in the comfort of their silence. No, they stood up against the odds. They spoke up against the horror of the age. For their courage, they paid the ultimate penalty. For their conviction, they paid with their own life. Frank Kalimzo, an intellectual master. Janan Luwum is a church martyr. And Benedicto Kiwanuka was a judicial, he is a judicial martyr. A tale of conscience, a tale of courage, a tale of conviction, a tale of ultimate self-sacrifice for the penultimate freedom and liberty of the masses. I was privileged to physically meet and see Benedicto Kiwanuka the first time in 1961 during the general elections of that year, which ushered in the political independence of Uganda. Benedicto Kiwanuka, like his erstwhile challenger, Apollo Milton Obote, came to my humble rural village of Lumino on their political rallies. After the rally, Kiwanuka had a quick lunch at the shop of my elder brother's neighbor. There, all we little school-going children congregated in droves to see face to face the legionary man of law and politics. The air was electric. Benedicto Kiwanuka was already a household name, a legend all across Uganda, as one who had politically defied his own king, the Kabaka of Uganda, in preference for the nationalistic good of his country. For that singular act of courage, Benedicto Kiwanuka, and political death at the ballot box, the Kabaka and all Buganda allied themselves with Milton Obote in the famous Kabaka UPC political party alliance to defeat Ben Kiwanuka NDP for the leadership of independent Uganda. Little could anyone tell that 24 years later, the same Benedicto Kiwanuka would defy the ruthless dictatorship of Idi Amin in defense of justice and the rule of law in his beloved country, Uganda. This time around, the courage of his defiance earned him physical death at the hands of the murderous presidency. From this very fortress of justice, this one where we are at now, the merchants of death snatched him. His body they desecrated, dumped in places unknown, by people unknown, and for reasons that we now know. Oh, how we long for the discovery of his body, so that we can give it a decent burial and a fitting farewell. Little did I then know, nor could I have predicted, that some 63 years after 1961, that is today, 63 years after 1961, that the little boy who saw Ben Kiwanuka dying on the campaign trail in his native village would earn the distinguished, coveted award which is directly associated with the same Ben Kiwanuka of legendary and characteristic courage and conviction. The only faint linkage that I can dimly envisage between Chief Justice Kiwanuka of 1972 and James Egoola of 2005 was the courage it took me to stand up, speak up, and write up against the abominable military outfit of Black Mambas, who on 16th December 2005, here in these court shrines, audaciously and atrociously invaded and besieged the temple of justice right here on this hallowed ground. Ugly episode gave rise to the writing of the now well-known poem, The Rape of the Temple of Justice. I first read it at a public gathering of the Uganda Law Society, and then subsequently published it in my anthology of poetry, which we call Songs of Paradise, a copy of which I brought with me. Is this still morning or is it afternoon now? In that anthology, I discovered only last night as I was preparing this, that actually I have written a few lines on Benedicto Kiwanuka. The poem Rape of the Temple starts something like this. From thin air they came, bedecked in black camouflage. Like a swarm of angry wasps, the Praetorian Guard descended on holy ground. Their ferocious fangs unfurled, their vicious sting darting ready to strike. Warlike, they came, wearing the bellicose face of terror, the malevolent mask of horror. Wild-like, they charged, wielding awesome weapons of war, AK-47s cocked, ready to discharge a crackling cartridge. Uzi guns waving ominously in the air, ready to vomit their lethal venom. That's how it starts. And then it picks up with the Ben Kiwanuka in stanza 8. Such unutterable trespass, such unrequited transgression had not been seen before, not since the sacrilegious execution of the chief priest, Ben Kiwanuka. He was snatched, hauled and carted away from this very shrine like a common thief. Infidels of the military ilk dragged him. From the sanctum of the shrine to the place of the skull, they led him. There, in the slaughterhouse, in the hall of the Holocaust, they butchered and quartered him, a martyr for judicial independence. Your permission, Right Honorable. Part with a word of caution to the high and the mighty. Those who would desecrate the Constitution of this Republic, those who would corrupt the institutions of the state, those who would with impunity abuse the liberty of the citizens, those who would muffle the voice of the people, those who would taint the ballot box of the electors, those who would in any way or guise subvert the democratic will of the people, those who would imperiously tamper with the God-given rights and freedoms of the citizen, all those stand warned. History is a harsh judge. 60 years from today, the judge sitting on the throne of history will judge you and will condemn you to a harsh and stern sanction. The court of public opinion then and the court of history will append your name to the lugubrious page of the infamous, the intolerable, and the obnoxious, and they will cast you into the dustbin of the ignominious. As for you, the people, then Kiwanuka's fellow citizens, stand up, speak up, and rise up against injustice and iniquity wherever, whenever, and howsoever they rear their ugly head.
paparazzi do the needful, taking the right posture. Congratulations, my lord.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much, my lord PG Emeritus. Let us give him a very big round of applause. I believe for those who love poetry, you didn't want him to end and you were enjoying it, and you were going until you didn't even notice it was over.